One of the sponsors has been with us from the beginning is our friends out in North Carolina, Highland Canine at Tactical Police Canine, letter K number 9, training.com. They are full service from top to bottom, left to right, north, south, east to west. They have everything, pointy ears, floppy ears, whatever you want. And they are a full service kennel doing seminars as well as handler schools for completed dogs and as well as green dogs. So be sure to hit them up, Highland Canine at tacticalpolicecaninetraining.com. The Fergusons are fantastic people. Jason's been on the podcast as well, so go look up his episode.
Our one of my favorite sponsors is 𝗔𝗡. The folks over at 𝗔𝗡.com. They've been doing this for a long time, guys. Their e-collars, bark collars, everything they do, we love it. We have a great relationship with them. They give a discount code WDR10 for 10% off any single item over $200. I tell everybody I have a kennel full of 𝗔𝗡 e-collars. Most importantly, I have a kennel full of 𝗔𝗡 bark collars. The YS600 to me is the best piece of equipment in all of dogs. Check them out, 𝗔𝗡.com. Check them out on Instagram at 𝗔𝗡official.
We really like the guys at Ray Allen Manufacturing. They've been around for freaking ever. They were making working dog equipment before there were working dogs for working bison, apparently. So, and their product designer is one of our favorite people, Matt Wilson. We love Matt. So rayallen.com. And everyone thinks, it's only for police and military dogs. And that's not the case. If you have a working dog, whether it's police and military or search and rescue or even hunting, and even if you got pets, they have literally everything minus the dog and the patrol car that you would need to outfit a working team or a pet team for anything, whether it be scent work, whether it be AKC or UKC scent work, all the way up to explosive and narcotics detection for military and police teams and everything in between. So be sure to hit them up at rayallen.com. Use the discount code Working Dog Radio spelled out for 10% off your order.
Absolutely, not even probably. Our first sponsor and longest sponsor is Arno over at ALM. Probably, to me anyways, one of the best guys in all canine. His website, almcanineequipment.com. You can get on there, give him a call, email him. He's the only guy you're going to talk to. almcanineequipment.com. He has easily the best tugs in the business. His bite suits are amazing. They last for a long time. Ted will tell you he's got the same jacket since Noah threw the ark out there. And his hidden sleeve, I still say, is the best in the business. Check him out. Use a discount code WD Radio, all spelled out, 10% off your first order. Check him out on Instagram, ALM Canine Equipment.
Horizon Structures. If you need a one-stop shop, so basically you call these guys, you tell them what you need, it gets dropped off at your location, you plug the water in and the electricity in, and you can put dogs in it that day. They have everything from 2 dog kennels all the way up to a massive 40-foot long one that can house, I think, 16, if I remember correctly, and that's indoor, outdoor with a feed room and everything in between. They've got something to fit every budget as well. Be sure to hit them up at horizonstructures.com and look for the commercial dog kennel section of the website, and it'll give you everything you need. They have multiple options for doors, flooring, plumbing, electricity. They even have an option for solar if you're in a portion of the country that's not gray like it is here right now. So if you have an option for that, you're lucky. So hit them up, horizonstructures.com. Get yourself set up and start selling dogs today.
All right, everybody, Working Dog Radio, we are back broadcasting the bite on all your podcast streaming and YouTube. For those of you folks that I love watching the episodes on YouTube, man. It definitely I like it. I like it. If I'm watching on the big screen or whatever, I like watching podcasts on YouTube. So it's pretty cool. Go to Working Dog Radio on YouTube and subscribe, please. My name is Eric Stamberg, coming to you from Ohio. With me, as always, is our co-host, Ted Summers from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Ted, what's up?
Nothing. Watching the implosion of Wall Street. It's been fun. That's what's going on outside the dog world. A bunch of dudes eating chicken fingers living in their basements outsmarted a bunch of NBA Wall Street dudes, and I have been watching the implosion. For those that don't know, my background, I have a degree in economics and like a master. a lot of education in business. So I've enjoyed watching these motherfuckers get eaten alive, and I'm just laughing my ass off because some dude named Potato in My Butt and Sonic Hedgehog outsmarted $20,000 an hour quants. Quantitative analysts are, yeah. So anyway, that's what's been going on. That, and I've been tracking. We've had unseasonably warm-ish weather here, not where you're at. So it hasn't been too bad. It's been windy as shit though. So tracking's been kind of rough. I got a dog. We're getting ready to deliver Mr. Jack. Big black Jack I have two Jacks to kennel right now. I have Pointy Jack and I have Floppy Jack, and they're both black. One's a lab and one is a big asshole Dutch Shepherd. And so I'm working all of them. And so, I'll talk to Alicia or I'll talk to one of the handlers, and they're like, "Oh, who you working?" I'm like, "Floppy Jack or Pointy Jack." So I've been working Pointy Jack and Pepper tracking, and Pepper's working on explosives. Jack's obviously a dual purpose narcotics dog. And then all the labs, I got 3 labs are working for, I'm like imprinting down narcotics. So yeah, other than that, I think I have a VA program starting in March with one of my buddies, Paul. So that ought to be interesting. Be good. I've known him for quite a while, but he lives down about an hour from me. So yeah. What about you?
Well, real quick, back up. Tell people what that VA program is.
Oh, so okay, we offer the vocational rehab program. So like, there's the post 9/11 program through like the VA, right? So for college degrees, whatever else. That's not what this is. Although our friends at Highland Canine do that program. That's not what this is. There's not like a school. There's not like books or anything weird that you have to buy. This is vocational rehab. If you have a disability that's verified through the VA, and it's a 20 to 25 week course, depending on what you want to do and what you want to focus on. It's paid for by the VA. You get all your equipment, and you're basically helping us at the kennel train every fucking patrol dog we have. And you start with green, there's several programs that happen within it, but you start with a puppy and you raise it to a green status. And then in there also, you have several green patrol dogs that you're raising from green, or, finishing from green all the way to finished patrol dog. And then part of that curriculum is you're doing a handler school at the same time. So you take the dog from green, you finish it with the handler as the whole deal. So the trick here is when you're done, you got everything you need to go start your own police canine business wherever. So, and we let people focus. I got a guy come through that worked in the oil industry that had a job in the safety portion of it. So he wanted to exclusively focus on detection stuff. And we had him do other stuff as well, but he ended up finishing the program and getting a couple of dogs done, and was now doing oil rig stuff, searching for narcotics at oil rigs and camps where oil field workers are and stuff like that. So it's just kind of part of his normal routine. And I think I don't know what's going on now with but that was the plan. So I haven't checked in with him in a while, but yeah, we've had several people come through the program, but yeah, it's a good deal for sure. So hit me up, info@Torchlight Canine. I can fill you in on the program details.
That's pretty sweet, man. That's pretty cool. So, as you can tell, we are not Australian.
No,
even though Ted is afraid of spiders and likes Fosters, he is not
and I've eaten kangaroo.
There you go. But so we're doing an Australian series. So we're doing an Australian series. The problem we're having is, and we're getting it lined up, is the time difference. If they want to record in the evening, that's morning for us, the day before them, and us working kennels and working dogs, it's becoming difficult, but we'll get it. Don't worry. We are going to have our Australian series, hopefully after this. So we were going to do a segment at the beginning of each episode for a while called Dumb Shit People Say in Canine. And basically it's things we hear that are pervasive myths throughout canine. And it's been years that people have been saying this. Most of these are things that are just flat out made up. It's things that are made up and have been then just passed on from trainer to trainer and generation to generation, things that are factually untrue. There's at least one thing we're going to talk about that's kind of a misunderstood, or maybe there is a little bit of truth, but it's blown way out of proportion. And so I said, well, let's just do a whole episode on it instead of starting off every episode with me in a bad mood. So, so we're going to call this episode Myths and Lies of Canine, or something similar to that, because there's so many things that we hear from guys like, hey, my trainer said this. And I'm like, yeah, that's made up. It's just not, it's not real. It's just usually made up by people who don't know how to train dogs, or think they do, and they just don't know how to do better.
Yeah, they have a sample size of like 2. Yeah. So they get 2 dogs and they're like, oh, this is what happens for all of them. And that's not the case. So
it comes, a lot of this comes from big fish in small ponds, trainers that have a closed group where they try to look like some sort of guru, and where they never go outside and no one from outside is allowed to come in, or from larger departments even that will not train with anyone outside, and they just have permeated these bullshit myths for years, and it's just accepted.
Right. And that's actually, and we don't have to mention the city, but there's a city in Ohio that's had a problem with that, and it was endemic in their department. It just wasn't canine, but it was like everything, like all their training, they did in their academy, everything. Right. So they ended up getting popped by the DOJ or somebody, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it was their whole department as a whole, the way they thought they were their own state. It's very strange, but anyways, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of these, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to do a couple more. We're going to take another break. For those of you who have said that our commercial breaks are too long, we have split them up.
Yep.
It's a good problem to have, right? So we have new sponsors. We, again, right off the chute, we want to welcome NC Canine to the family here.
Mm-hmm.
Jim O'Brien, good dude, good trainer, good dogs. And he's down in North Carolina. It's way warmer than here if you go there for a handler school. It was wind chill here today was in the single digits. It's brutal. So, anyways, check out nck9.com. They're good dude, man. It's funny because they're in North Carolina, but he's got the thickest Boston type East Coast accent.
Yeah. We interviewed him, Hits 2 years ago. He's been on the podcast. I think it was a muzzle episode is what we talked about with him. And so
I think it was Blue Line, wasn't it? It might have been the first Blue Line.
Or Blue. Yeah, it was right. No, it was Blue. Yeah, it was Blue Line. It was when we were in Daytona. That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, go back and listen to Jim's episode for sure.
Yeah, it was a good time. So we're going to kick it off. The first one is this kind of goes with that whole myth that obedience kills drive, right? That whole thing. But I've heard this recently. So everyone knows, I talk about all the time. I talk about it on social media here, everything, that I'm a big fan of bark collars. My kennel is quiet. I don't like insane, stupid kennel noise. I don't like dogs spun up in the kennel. I believe unfettered dogs flipping out in the kennel gets them loose in their stool. It creates all kinds of shit problems. I don't have those issues at my kennel, because if you look at my video right now, they're all asleep, because they better not, if they get rowdy, they get hit by the 𝗔𝗡𝗗 𝗖𝗢𝗨 bark collar. As our good friend David, I was just talking to David the other day. He has 20 kennels with 20 dogs in it. He has 25 bark collars. He has it's quiet in there. So I asked somebody, why don't they use bark collars? And some trainer had told them that bark collars kill drive. Things like this. So this is just someone making up crap. Bark collars kill drive. So at my training days, on big, large group training, I prefer everyone to wear bark collar in the car. So the dog is quiet, not spun up, not gassed out when it's his turn to do detection or whatever it is we're going to do, that he is calm, right? A lot of them, there'll be bite work going on. You go back and look, and the dog's laying down in the back of the car because it's not worth it. And then when you get him out, he's fresh, he's refreshed, ready to go. So for someone to say bark collars kill drive, that is made up, fake, made up. Again, someone who doesn't have the numbers, has the small sample size. Every dog in my kennel for years have worn bark collars, and I put out bangers. No low drive dogs, no medium drive dogs, high drive bangers, and they all wear bark collars. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, so I mean, I don't understand how that is like one of those things. So, and this kind of goes back to another deal, like people, some dogs are vocal and some dogs aren't, right? Like I've sold dogs before that, like I've never heard them bark. Like they just don't bark, and like at all. During detection, during bite work, during during building searches, like I can get the motherfucker to bark at all. Then I've got dogs that make noise in their sleep, right? Especially fucking German Shepherds. So we had a German Shepherd. Well, it's been several years now. It's been like 4 years now, but they came through, and God, just breathing, he was whining, and it wasn't anything stressful. Super strong dog environmentally, super strong dog with decoy pressure, super strong dog just all around, right? So some dogs are just vocal. There's a pervasive myth. A lot of people don't like dogs that are vocal on a grip because if they're in prey, some dogs are vocal. If they're not in prey, there's some, it really is individual to the dog. I have a dog right now in my house. It's Pepper, right? It's, everybody, well, not everybody, but it's Pepper, right? So, and Pepper, I swear to God, is the barkiest fucking Malinois. She barks at fucking everything, and it's constantly barking. And I have 2 bark collars for her. She wears them almost 24 hours a day. She has 𝗔𝗡𝗙 sells those badass, like they're like this big, and they take out the little points, and it's a flat thing that fits on their neck, right? And just to keep her from fucking barking, because she's constantly barking. And I've tried waiting her out during detection work. I mean, it is just insane. And the excessive barking comes from drive leaking, right? So in a working capacity, the bark collars are good because it doesn't require me to have a fucking e-collar in my hand, right? And constantly correct them. It's just a self-correcting problem. And it does work, especially with like when we're doing gunfire stuff. If the dog's if they're not scared of the gunfire, if they're just, spun up on it, then, but that's another deal altogether. But the other thing that's nice about it, so drive leaking, right? Like it doesn't compress drives. Like the Pepper's got enough drive for 2 fucking dogs. She doesn't need and if it did, I would be ecstatic, right? It definitely does not compress her drive. She doesn't need any fucking more drive. The other side of this, I think that a lot of people like either misconceptualize or misunderstand or whatever else, is that that neurotic spinning bullshit behavior does like what you just said. Dogs have stool problems, they spin themselves up, they break their fucking teeth on kennels, which is super fun, fence fighting with other dogs and all this other bullshit, and it just keeps everybody under control and keeps them from fucking barking all the time. And everybody is always asking like, oh well, dogs, how do you keep them from barking? I'm like, dogs bark, like that's like they bark, like that's a thing. So as far as I'm concerned, how barking is related to drive is typically it's a symptom of drive leaking. Like dogs bark and bark and bark. In fact, if you talk to a lot of the experience like French ring and Mondio ring people, especially during some of the longer exercises where the dog during the object guard and some of this stuff, because the Mondio ring exercise, I mean, shit, when you're in the threes, the Mondio dogs are out there for like half an hour or something. They're just constantly barking their fucking head off. It gasses them out, and it's not good for them. In fact, I've seen Mondio and French ring people sell dogs that were fantastic. They ended up being fantastic patrol dogs because they won't shut the fuck up, and they can't get them to stop barking. And it has nothing to do with drive. It has nothing to do with compression. It's just an issue of getting them to shut up. And I mean, if you have a dog that's out there for 10 minutes doing an object guard and he won't shut his mouth, the decoy is literally just going to stand there and look at him, you know, within the rules, and stand there and look at him until he just gases himself out. And then he's going to go up and take his shit from him. And that's it. So yeah, bark colors do not compress drive. Like drive is genetically predisposed, like in the womb. Like, you know, you can't, like, it's there or it's not, right? So we do some drive building and we do some drive capping, like we put the genie back in the bottle, but it that is not what drive bark colors do. I mean, it's not like, what's that movie with Jet Li where he's got that fucking collar on, like he's like a little ninja guy, and then they take the collar off and he turns into a fucking assassin or something. That's not how it works.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So
and
yeah,
you can, you know,
no.
You can teach a dog to not bark in the car if you don't want him to. I don't recommend really driving around with the bark collar because you're going to have to jump out at the last second to work, and you're going to forget to take it off because it was really fast. But if you have a dog in your car that barks incessantly at headquarters, you know what I mean? Like nonstop the entire time you're parked outside. Some places their bosses hate that. Put a bark collar on them, make them quiet. It's really that simple.
So you have a handler. You have a handler right now that's got like some hearing loss in his ear from having dipshit bark all the time.
Yeah, we had one guy he's retired from the police department. He had definitely diminished hearing loss. And then there's two more, one at the department, one in another department that they have been getting their hearing tested for a while. My second dog, Willie, was incessantly barking and whining. And
that video we show at HRD seminars, like you're like, this was it all day, fucking all day.
Yeah. But you can look, I don't know if this will come through on the camera, but you can see that's at my kennel, right? The fawn colored Malinois he's not super vocal, but the black one that you can kind of see up there barks nonstop if you let him. So, and actually today he doesn't have a bark collar on because he knows in the kennel to be quiet now. And it took a little while. They're sleeping. They're quiet. There's other dogs on the other side over there. They're all sleeping. That's the thing about the bark collars is it's not just about barking. If your dog thrashes in his crate or thrashes against the kennel, and like Ted was talking about trying to rip out and they're going to rip the teeth out. If you have that bark collar up high enough, it'll put an end to that shit right now.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's move on to the next one because this one's going to be a little bit. This is one of Ted's specialties. So the next topic we're going to do is, and this one's always interesting to me, and we made it enough that we made a T-shirt for it. If you go to workingdogradio.com, look at the T-shirts, you can buy this, and the T-shirt has that guy sitting behind the table with the coffee cup, and it says, ours says, "Canine liability is a myth. Change my mind." And that's something that I want to say to every administrator that I hear. We don't have bite dogs because of liability. We don't have dogs because of liability. But when you ask them to prove the liability problems, to name all these lawsuits, all these billions of dollars that have been paid out because of canine, they can't tell you because there isn't. And they made it up, or someone made it up a long time ago, and it just keeps weaving its way through the thread of their department. Canine liability, canine liability. It's not true. It isn't. Sure, there's not been zero lawsuits, but I mean, there's been some lawsuits, but not to where these people think, not what it is. Ted does a ton of research about lawsuits. And if you look, most of the case law about dogs and lawsuits that happen about dogs or cases that go to appellate courts and Supreme Court are all about detection. They have nothing to do with actual biting. So, Ted, we talk about this at HRD. What do you tell the people?
Well, no, at HRD, I say different shit than I say. And so when I talk to administrators, I tell them, I was like, there is a large body of case law that has to do with failure to supervise and failure to train. And that actually creates a 1983 or Monell claim where individual people within the chain of command and within the supervisory process are held liable because they suck, either because they're lazy or because they're indifferent or because they don't know any better. All three are bad. But the point is, there's a lot of liability out there for dogs and for canine, and I say canine case law in quotes because there's a lot of that there. There's a lot of it too where a lot of administrators, and it's usually sheriff's departments, don't pay the fucking handlers more like what they're supposed to. Like you just have to. Like I mean, I don't. Everyone is always scared of the IRS. Let me explain something to you. If you think the IRS is bad, wait till a labor department comes up your ass. There has been several cases where labor boards have come in and shut police departments down for not paying fucking handlers the excessive amount of time. Like if you're listening to this and you are a canine, you're an administrator and you oversee a canine unit where there's 1 or 100 fucking dogs, you have to pay them. There's a lawsuit going on, and you have to pay them extra. There's a lawsuit going on right now in Las Vegas. It's either Vegas or North Las Vegas, where they're suing the department, and they're arguing that their excessive pay wasn't also paid into their retirement. Which I don't know how that's going to turn out, but I mean, their argument is all of their overtime was paid in, so why the fuck wasn't that also? And I can't disagree with them. So there's that, right? Like you have to supervise and you have to you have to supervise, you have to make sure that they're trained, and you have to pay the guys. Like, I mean, this shit should be obvious, right? But there is a substantial amount of quote unquote canine liability that comes from that shit. The guys that don't run leashes, it's dickheads that sit in offices and in desk jobs that used to be cops that never run a leash and that are like, well, we need to do this, we need to do that. Or like, this is our policy. On another point, federal law doesn't give a fuck what your policy is. They just don't. Federal courts do not care what your policy is unless by design, by administration, by implementation, by several other means, it does violate somebody's Fourth Amendment or somebody else's other's right? Like in the process, right? I can't imagine that there's many of those around, but then they care. So when it comes to these mythic bites that everybody sees and all this other bullshit, right? And we're in the days of social media and the same bites get shared over and over and over again. I should probably start with saying there are bad bites, right? Shit happens. Like we bite people we shouldn't. Either, Kerr versus West Palm Beach is the perfect case of we don't bite people we shouldn't. We don't bite people that are in handcuffs, and we don't bite people for bullshit crimes. Like those are the three cases from Kerr versus West Palm Beach. You'd think it's common sense, but they had to have the court decision to say it. So that should be obvious. Now, these massive payouts of things that happen, like a lot of those are departments, like it's a genuine mistake, right? Like they bit somebody on accident, somebody was in the wrong place at the wrong time, or the handler exercised terrible decision-making skills or terrible handling skills. And that's normally because they were not managed and administrated well. So yeah, I mean, it's a failure to train at that point, right? So these large payouts, when we start looking at these cases where you're effectively talking about a use of force case, right? So, canine is not any different. They don't look at a dog any different than they look at using a fucking taser or using a baton or using a firearm, right? Or using pepper balls or whatever. Use of force is use of force no matter what it is. There's not a special category, or there's not a special set of case law. It says not a special use of force continuum for just the dog, right? So this whole myth around canines create excessive liability, if we take the admins out of it, and it's and the joke that I always tell, I'm like, look, there's been 3 recorded deaths of canine bites from police dogs, not from just pit bulls, in the country, and in 30 something years. And you're scared to give them a dog, but you give them a car and a gun. And I'm like, and when you put it in those terms, I'm like, those two things, you'll give them the ability and the discretion of that level of force, either running somebody over or using a firearm, but a dog is scary. right? And what that tells me more than anything else is, one, you don't have faith in the handler selection. Um, you know, we've done this before. We had Jay Nix on. We talked about handler select. Yeah, that's right. We talked about handler selection. Jay does a really good job with selecting those dudes down in Marion County. But you got to have somebody that's very mature, very good decision making capabilities, is able to make very sound decisions, is good for report writing. All these things that demonstrate a maturity, because canine. The reason that canine, I think, gets put into this weird, like, oh, it's a it's a dangerous thing liability wise, is because canine is disproportionately put in the highest instance of use of force of any specialized unit in law enforcement, more than SWAT, more than the fucking gang unit guys, more than anybody else. So the dog's primary job is a location tool. They're either finding contraband or explosives or something. And if it's a dual purpose dog, they're finding people. The trick with finding people is that when we start looking at Graham versus Connor, you get into these whole, like, should we use force, where, when, and where, and how, and all these other factors. And the dogs are disproportionately put in a position to use a great amount of force just about every time they go out. Like, Yerrick, you were on fucking SWAT forever. Like, how many times did you get called out and fire around?
I shot one guy on SWAT, and total, since I was on the team and going forward since I retired, I think total the team has shot 4 people, and
they get called out.
A
shit ton.
Well, we were like, yeah, once a week. We were pretty busy, but still, yeah, actually having to shoot people was very, 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 very rare, very rare.
And how many times?
We bit.
I was going to say,
as a unit for a while, we were about 1 a week on an average for a year. There were times there was 2 or 3 a shift, or the wintertime would slow down, but then summertime on midnight shift, they're getting a bite every couple days, so it averages out about 1 a week.
So yeah, the myth of canine liability, and then I'm not saying that there's not liability. Obviously there is. Like, if you put some dipshit in that, has a hard on for fucking people up and, has a problem, and you don't manage him and you let him run wild, like, yeah, you're going to have a problem. He's going to bite people he shouldn't. He's not going to have control of the dog. Right. But that is a larger problem within that department. It's not isolated to just the dog, and hanging it on a handler and a dog team is pretty short-sighted, in my opinion. And any time that an administrator comes to me and they say, oh, it's an excessive liability, they fall into 2 categories and 2 only. 1, they're uneducated, or 2, they're lazy. That's it. And if you're listening to this and you're an administrator, you're one of those 2. If you say that canines have an excessive amount of liability, you're either uneducated or lazy. 1 is acceptable. You can fix it. The other one is just, you're just a shithead. So, yeah. I mean, like, there's no way around it.
I will say this: if someone does file a lawsuit on you for canine, you are the handler or the trainer of the handler, you have got to participate.
Oh yeah,
in your own defense. In that, the attorney. So at my department, we have attorneys that work for the city that work in the law department, right? And we got sued one time when I was there. I was the trainer of a dog. It was a case that actually went viral. And there was a whole video of it. And when I went up to talk to them, they're like, they take the side immediately that the handler is not, or is guilty. And they started saying all this stuff. And I'm like, it's not true. You didn't watch the video.
Yeah.
Or you watched what was on the news. Remember, they're equally, those attorneys are as gullible and as susceptible to being manipulated by the media and by social media as everyone else.
Probably more so.
Right.
So they saw interest in each side.
Right. So they saw the videos on YouTube or on social media and immediately thought, oh, like the videos were edited and doctored. So we played, and I went through step by step, and they're like, oh crap, that's not at all. I'm like, yeah, you were going to just give this guy money and whatever without even looking at the video. And so they ended up, telling the guys that eat a dick, and went to trial, and it got thrown out of federal court, which I knew it would. They didn't even watch all the way through the video where the guy was at the hospital and admitted he set the entire thing up so that he could try to get some money. So I'm like, yeah, so you got to participate. I got sued in federal court before as a canine handler for an excited delirium death. I fought a dude and he died while we were fighting. And a lot of it was on car camera. And I had to, all the way up to trial date, point things out to them on the videos, because they fast forward through shit and they're skipping stuff and they think they got it, but they don't. Mm-hmm. So remember, you got to participate. But the other thing is, in the end, the outcome, if they're going to settle, is out of your control. Yep. It's an insurance thing, or it is always a risk versus reward, or cost versus whatever thing. And guys, if they settle, even if you were right and you're good to go, it's going to bother you, and you can't.
That's another thing too. Like, settling is not an admission of a violation of somebody's constitutional rights. It's not even an admission of policy. I mean, you could be 110% within policy and case law and everything else. It could be the cleanest bite in the world, and they could sue. And somebody outside of your department at your city or county or whoever the fuck does it can be like, you know what, it's going to cost $60,000 just to get this to the point where we can litigate it at trial. So offer him $50,000 to shut up. And that, and you know, there was a Washoe County Sheriff's Office, a perfect example. They bit that dude, that dickhead that was, you know, wanted, and, you know, the marshal looking for him, whatever else. And the only part you see is him going like this, and in front of some little lady's bird bath, and then nuking the dude, right? You don't know what happened. But you know, he should have been bit. And that guy, who's still in jail, by the way, they paid him like $17,000, I think, the next day. And he had some ambulance chasing dickhead attorney that representative, and I'm sure he put $5,000 in his books for honey buns and kept the rest of it. But part of that was that part of getting that payment from them was that he did not receive any damage from that dog bite. And that is not true. that dog fucked him up, but he was like, oh, you're going to pay me. It didn't hurt. I'm like, okay. So if they settle, that doesn't mean you lost. Like, it really doesn't. I swear to God, believe me, I've been involved in enough fucking lawsuits and legal shit that, like, if they settle, it's not an admission of guilt. It's not an admission of wrongdoing. It's not an admission of anything other than we just don't want to deal with it. So,
yeah. And if those of you have never dealt with federal court, on the civil side of it, the federal judges, I hate federal judges. They force settlements. They push and push and push and force and intimidate and threaten attorneys. Usually not the defendant's attorneys, almost always the city attorneys. They do threaten them and, like, really try to apply tons of pressure to settle. My case, the excited delirium case, they sued us for $20 million. This judge was the biggest motherfucking scumbag ever pushing. You guys are all going to lose your house. Pulled us aside because he refused to give us qualified immunity. We were not indemnified in that case. So our houses were up, everything. He would tell us, you better convince these guys to settle because you're losing everything. You're going to lose your pension, blah, blah, blah. And finally, we just got sick and tired of his bully tactics. Fuck him, and went to trial, and we won. So eat a dick, Judge Gwynn, right there, you piece of shit. Hate that dude. So anyways,
there's that. So on that note, we're going to go to a break real quick. And we're going to go to a break real quick, and we'll be back. All right.
So sorry to interrupt the great conversation we are having, but we have amazing sponsors that we need to bring to you. One of our favorites, one of our oldest, is Southern Coast Canine. The folks down there, the Heisers, they are great folks down there in New Smyrna, Florida, right? They got everything you need to do down there, guys. Full service kennel, southerncoastcanine.com. Give them a call, 877-903-DOGS. The Southern Coast Canine folks have killer dogs, guys. Everyone we've seen have been badass. Check them out on Instagram at Southern Coast Canine.
Everybody knows that training is super important. One of the best training conferences in the country is HITS. It's by canine handlers for canine handlers. HITS Canine, letter K, number 9.net. The largest vendor show in the country, the largest giveaway for handlers in the country, and some of the most skilled instructors in the country, plus Eric and I. We're going to be there July 6th through the 9th in Scottsdale, Arizona, bringing the HRD Roadshow to everyone there, doing the presentation about scenario-based training. And then they've got everybody there from the industry to do fantastic presentations. Also, classifies and certify for your training hours when you come back to your department. So it's going to be in Scottsdale, Arizona, July 6th to the 9th. Be sure to hit up Jeff Barrett, 863-529-5113, or hits K9, letter K number 9.net.
The other big thing that guys mess around with and don't get right is nutrition for their dogs. Our good friends down at Kinetic Dog Food, they got it right. Especially if you own a kennel. Like there's all kinds of problems that go along with owning a kennel with a lot of dogs, kennel stress and things. These guys are great. They service some of the largest kennels in the country. KineticDogFood.com. Their stuff is so good. Give them a call, 513-615-6904. Kinetic Dog Food on Instagram. Wonderful people, wonderful food. Check them out, KineticDogFood.com.
Next up, we have a sponsor that's been with us for quite a while, Quick Derm by Vet Care. This stuff is magic. For whatever reason, working dogs have this uncanny ability to hurt themselves in fantastic and magical ways. Don't let small problems be big ones. Happy tail, torn up paws. One of our good buddies and also one of our interviews, Jake Hutchinson, had his dog got kicked in the face by a horse. The stitches were healed up very quickly with Vet Care. I use it on my tattoos. Alicia just got a new one and she's using it as well. Stuff is magic. So hit them up at vetcare.us. Use the discount code 10WDR for 10% off your first order. Awesome stuff.
Our brand new sponsor, guys, and he's a good dude, man. He really is a good dude, good trainer. He's been on the podcast, friend of ours. He's worked with us at HRD, great decoy. Jim O'Brien down at NC Canine in North Carolina. Obviously, NC stands for North Carolina. NC Canine, letter K number 9. Great stuff, guys. Their police dogs are good. Floppy ear, pointy ear, dual purpose, single purpose, handler schools, better weather than we have in Ohio. Give them a call, 919-438-0141. Check out his website, nccanine.us. Hit him up on Instagram at nccanine.llc. For them, guys, training is not a job. It is their life.
All right, we're back. First break of the episode. So we covered 2 questions. We got 4 more, or 4 myths, I guess. 2 myths, 4 more. So we're back. So there's another myth that is pervasive. I hear it all the time. And it seems like it goes through these weird phases. Like I'll get people to call and they're like, oh, I want this or I want that. And I'm like, all right. So we'll get departments that say, I can't have a Malinois because I have a first-time handler. Like, okay, what does that have to do with anything? Like, what difference does it make? You know, if it's a first-time handler or not. So there's this myth that, and I don't know where it comes from. I can't give him first-time handler Malinois, which is not fucking true. But Eric, have you heard it?
All the time. As a matter of fact, I got a call from sergeant, I think he was, from a department in Ohio. And this guy was used to be a handler years ago in the 90s, late 90s. And he said, yeah, it must be a German Shepherd. And I'm like, is that a breed preference or because you worked a Shepherd? He goes, no, this is a first-time handler. I don't, or he says, it's not, I don't think, he said, a first-time handler should not have a Malinois. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and pass on even sending you any quote or anything, because what you just said tells me that you're going to be a problem to deal with. And I just said, don't call me again. Appreciate you. And it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The dumbest in all of canine. I think a first-time handler should not have a Malinois. Like all Malinois is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
when I have heard this or when I ask people, they're like, I have to have a German Shepherd. I'm like, well, why? Or I have to have this, or I'm like, okay, well, why? And then they'll give me some reason. But this one in particular, back in the 90s or whatever, a lot of people, when Malinois first became cool, it was, they were like, oh, they're crazy, they're this and they're that and whatever. And a lot of those guys are still in decision making positions now, lieutenant captain, chief, whatever. And that's what they're going off of. A lot of the old quote unquote master trainers are still like that era of age. And admittedly, handling what I would consider for a police dog, like an average to above average drive German Shepherd versus handling a fucking race car Malinois, like the training is different. Like I handle them different in training. I handle them different. I teach the handlers differently. Like there's some things like I don't have to teach drive capping to the first dog, right? Like a German Shepherd that's kind of like, sort of there most of the time. They do detection work. They really shine when you put heat on them for bite work. They mature, right? They mature into themselves and all that other stuff. Like you don't have to teach those dogs drive capping. You just don't. So, the handling strategy and the handling skill set is a lot different. I've actually seen multi-time. I have a guy that had a dog. He had 3 German Shepherds that were kind of that average to above average for a police dog, not overall. German Shepherds. He came to us and he's like, I want to, he basically told me he wanted a 90-mile-an-hour Malinois. I was like, okay. I said, but you've handled for 9 years, right? Or 10 years, or however long you've been handling a dog. I said, you cannot handle this dog like you handled these last 3, right? He had 100 plus pound German Shepherds and he gets this 75-pound, fucking rocket. And for sure as shit, for the first couple of weeks, that dog ate his lunch because he would overcorrect him. He would, move like, and I was like, you have got to be more precise with this dog. You have got to be more, you've got to be more purposeful. You've got to be more, all of these things. And I was like, it's not the same type of handling and not the same type of training. So I don't firmly believe, I mean, that's like telling them you can't give them a fucking 9 or a 40 cal for their fucking service weapon. You got to give them a 22. I mean, it's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. Or you can't give them, you got to give them a fucking 4-cylinder for their fucking patrol car at first because you can't let them get into chases or whatever else. So it's one of those things that it comes down to teaching the skill set with handling the dog and fundamentally understanding motivations, drives, and the skill of the trainer, whether it's me or you or whoever, and demonstrating that. Now, I will say that I have seen dogs that have too much drive to be a police dog. That is just fucking out. That they're just neurotic, and it's a management nightmare for their entire fucking life, even after they are retired. And the problem that I see, and where problems happen, is dudes picking green dogs. And dudes picking green dogs, and they're like, I want as much drive as possible. I'm like, careful what you wish for, big homie. I'm like, that you get one of them true prey monsters, them motherfuckers will bite themselves given a chance. Like, don't like the difference between an acceptable amount of drive versus a over amount of stimulation is a very fine line. And then you get a dog that runs that handler and then doesn't get utilized because he's afraid to get him out of the fucking car because he's not in control of the dog. He doesn't know how to control him. The dog is just and that's where it comes from. It's from motherfuckers running old German Shepherds that are slightly above average in drive, which is or just average or above average, whatever. Like they're nice dogs, probably like Willie, right? Like Willie wasn't a psycho, right?
No, Willie was a psycho.
Oh, well, fuck, never mind. I've sold some German Shepherds that are fucking psycho. Enzo here in Oklahoma, Jesus Christ, that dog, he's a Malinois. I've seen, man, he went to a handler. He went to a handler to handle a Malinois first, and then went to a German Shepherd, and that dog had more drive than his previous Malinois. And that's a great dog, and he's a great handler, but it is not, and it goes back to, and I hate saying stupid catchphrases, but it's the dog you have in front of you. So I'm usually really honest with departments when I talk to them, like, what do you want? Right. And Sometimes they don't even fucking know, or they think they know. They're like, "Oh, I want this." I'm like, "No, you don't." I mean, or they say that. I'm like, "All right, well, come look at this dog. This is what that is. You think you can handle that?" And they're like, "Well, fuck." I mean, so, and sometimes they're right. Sometimes they can handle it. So, but yeah, what do you think?
Willie was I call him a rodeo dog. You had if you got him out as a show force or whatever, you had about 8 seconds to put him up or to let him bite somebody, or he would bite me in the ankle. So I was wearing like motorcycle boots because he would turn and pow, and I'd yell and he'd go, "Oh shit, sorry." And so you had a quick little time. Another dog at our department, Vlad, was the same way. But then, a quick example, and we'll move on. So I just finished a class with a guy who's a friend of mine, was a handler. This was his third dog, right? I barely remember his first dog as far as how he worked. His second dog was a big giant shepherd with a nice career, had some good bites, good finds, big, huge. When he first got him, was a mean son of a bitch. And that kind of came down, but he's worked, for a long time as handling a dog. The dog he just got from me that went through was 350 miles an hour. And so everything the dog does was full speed. And guys don't think, oh, he's a shepherd, he'll be slower. Are you? No, not this one. So Mike, and he'll tell you, he's like, I had to he's like sweating, and like, oh man, this dog's gonna kill me. And not from being mean, just from, it was a whole different,
motherfucker outwork him.
Right. Yeah. Just, it was like this, click, let him go. Just don't fuck around. But tracking, was way different than he was used to, and things like that. And the dog's amazing, but he's just, so that thing is stupid. The next one that we're going to go over real quick before we go on another commercial is, this one I haven't heard in a while. It used to be super pervasive. So when I got into the canine, everything we did was aggressive alert. My first two dogs were aggressive alert dogs. And then when I went to my third dog and I was a trainer, the bosses are like, yeah, you need to do passive alert because we're tired of paying for scratching paint jobs. So, and there's just a ton of other reasons why. And so we switched over, and I learned from some folks the best way to do passive alert, and we train it. But I have then and still today hear people say, and these are people that came up under old school things, that passive alert dogs are not as accurate as aggressive alert dogs on detection. What do you think?
Active alert dogs are good for Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder could tell when an active alert dog finds source, right? For whatever it is. The thing about both active and passive alert dogs is that there is a fundamental change in behavior before a trained final response. So in a passive alert dog, our TFRs or whatever, right, is a sit, a down, a point, whatever it is, right? It's something that the dog does when he is as close to odor as he's going to get. With an active alert dog, they get as close to odor as they can, and then they go fucking ape shit and go after it, right? Dig, right? The trick here is that before that, there is a noticeable and documentable and consistent change in behavior depending on the dog. And that is what is important. There's tons of case law, well, not tons, but there's several amount of case law that dictate that we don't need a trained final response to have probable cause that there is likely narcotic activity or explosive activity happening at a location or in something or whatever else. You simply need to change behavior. But then on top of that, we have determined that a full-on change or a full-on trained final response is sufficient to establish probable cause along with the change of behavior to it. So the trick with and here's what I tell people all the time too. I said, we do the trained final response for lay people, not for handlers, right? Handlers can tell me, like good ones, after they have the dog for a while, even at the end of my handler school, like we just had a handler school finish, and those dudes are like, the dog's getting ready to alert. He's we're getting close. And this is a blind find. He's getting close, giving, they're calling out change of behavior as it's happening. The dog does his whole bracketing thing, head turn, his tail frisses up, whatever he does. Like one of the dogs does happy feet where he dances back and forth on his front feet before he goes into a sit, which whatever. I didn't teach him that. He just does it. But he does it every time. So and then he goes into his alert and, he sits and stares and does his thing. We do that for lay people. We do that to satisfy, prosecutors and whoever. Like kind of my test is my mom, she doesn't listen to the podcast. She doesn't really even know what the fuck I do. I mean, she cares, but I mean, she's like, oh, you're a dog trainer. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much it. So I text her, like I'll text her video of a dog that I'm finishing. And I'm like, hey, where's the drugs? And she's like, oh, it's, it's right here. I'm like, well, how do you know? And she'll tell me because the dog did this, right? She doesn't do the change behavior, but she tells me the trained final response. So if my fucking mom, who knows nothing about canine, she's a nurse, she's an RN, right? And she's got a master's degree in like art history or something, right? It's completely non-related. There's absolutely no idea about anything that I do other than I'm a dog trainer. If she can tell me with a passive alert dog from a text video where odor is, then I think they're accurate enough for just about anybody else. So yeah, what do you think?
Yeah. If you go to training and you're going to go get a dog and you're going to go to a training course and the trainer is still teaching aggressive alert dope dogs, you should question all of their training. All of their training methods are old. They're old. And listen, one of the best things I ever did was switching us from aggressive to passive alert just for sheer ability to train wherever the fuck we want to train. And not, we used to go to the impound lot and then we would have to find cars that had a big X on them, which meant they were going to go to the auction, right? And we would fuck these cars up. And guys like the aggressive alert, because after the first dog goes on certification, everyone knows where the fuck.
That's probably true.
Call it. That's it.
That's probably true.
So you have those guys. Oh, I'm not going first.
No, I'm going to look.
I mean, come on. So as soon as they walk by the car, they see the scratch mark. They're pulling their toy out. They're going to throw it right at the scratch marks, and their dog's not even out of the car yet. I found it right here. So
excellent.
We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we have 2 more good topics for you. Stand by.
2 more lies.
Mm-hmm. Working Dog Radio. We love our sponsors. This episode is sponsored in part by Ray Allen at rayallen.com. Everything for dogs. Check out their 10% discount code using Working Dog Radio, all caps, rayallen.com for everything dogs.
Be sure to check out Dogtra also. Eric and I love Dogtra. It's what we both use at the kennel each day. I like the 1900S. Be sure to check them out at dogtra.com. Use the discount code WDR10 for 10% off any single item over $200.
Are you going to the Hits Canine this year, guys? The biggest and best conference in the United States, July 6th through the 9th, Scottsdale, Arizona. HitsCanine.net. Give Jeff Barrett a call, 863-529-5113.
Making sure you have the right dog food is a super important part of running a working dog, whether it be police dogs, military dogs, or hunting dogs, or search and rescue. We like Kinetic dog food. The guys at Kinetic can be found at kineticdogfood.com. Area code 513-615-6904. Hit them up.
We got a brand new sponsor, our good buddy Jim O'Brien down at NCK9 in North Carolina. Full service kennel, police dogs, single purpose, dual purpose, handler schools, trainer schools. Check them out, nck9.us.
Last but certainly not least is Horizon Structures. If you want a one-stop shop, drop it off and put dogs in it and ready to rock, hit them up, horizonstructures.com/commercial-dog-kennels. Horizon Structures will be able to hook you up.
All right, we are back. Hope you like those commercials. Our brand new sponsor, NCK9, is in that batch. Go back and check, guys. We got good information on there, seminars, all kinds of things, conferences. No rapists are advertising here. We don't have any of the magazine conferences on here. That includes any conferences you see from MWD magazine. They are also owned by the same person. Yep. Keep that in mind. And fuck Elite Canine. So anyways,
Yep.
So our next myth, and this is also probably the one of the dumbest things I've heard. And this is mostly comes from guys that are in secluded areas, and they just don't know. They heard something or they had some weird opinion. And then when you point some things out to them, they're like, oh yeah, that's pretty stupid. We still hear this, that you can't have dual purpose bomb dogs. Can't have dual purpose explosive dogs. They have this weird thing that even though they have a dual purpose drug dog who's passive alert and doesn't just maul everything it sees, they think for some reason that bomb dogs are just psychotic and you can't teach them to not scratch and paw at explosives. So they'll say, oh no, I just assume because it's a bomb, you can't have a dual purpose. We're not teaching them to bite stuff. It's so dumb. And Ted, have you seen dual purpose bomb dogs anywhere?
Yeah, I've got one in my house.
Yes.
Like, and there's one on the painting behind me, like right there. Like that is a dual purpose well, it's a multi-purpose canine, but I'm using my mouse, but you can't see my finger. But like right behind me is a painting that another podcast guest gave me. Trent McDonald gave me that painting, and he's in the painting. If you're listening to us and not watching, it's the famous photo Into the Breach that everybody's fucking seen. It's the Rangers going in through a breach and sending Benno in first. And Benno was a dual purpose, or he was a multi-purpose canine. He was trained to find explosives. And so, yeah, I mean, I have seen a couple. Yes. I've trained a couple
all over the United States. We have them. We have a lot of live finds in my city with our dual purpose explosive dogs, and they've never blown themselves up. They've never bit the bomb or grabbed it or ran off with it. Neither are our drug dogs. It's people just say things, and when they come out of their mouth, I don't know how they believe it. If you think about it, because they'll say to me, I go, what about the military dogs? Just as an example, what about the military dogs? Every one of the dogs in the Navy SEAL program is a dual purpose explosive dog. The Rangers, dual purpose explosive dogs. Not all the Marine Corps, but a lot of them are. USASOC dogs, MARSOC dogs are dual purpose explosive dogs. And you don't hear about, well, another dog died today. He must have been an explosive dog, blew his head off. What did he do? No. He's insane. He bit the bomb. Of course, he's dual purpose. That's a mistake. Think about it, guys, before you say things like that. It's stupid.
It's definitely stupid. I don't know where that comes from. And well, it probably comes from the inability to prevent them from getting close to source. And then I'm not even going to go into the conversation about indirect versus direct reward.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure if people say that, but anyway, that's probably like way over. So, but yeah, I mean, there are ways to prevent dogs from touching stuff. Believe me, I've done it. So yeah, I mean, yeah, dual purpose explosive dogs are.
Yeah, almost every dog in the country that's dual purpose is trained not to touch whatever it is they're finding, guns, bombs, money. It's, oh my God, it's so stupid. Okay, the last one is we could literally do 100 of these. One real quick, one of my favorites is these guys that say if you're going to track human beings to find them and bite them, that you must always have a bite at the end of the track. You do not know what the fuck you're talking about. You say that, you don't have the numbers to prove it. I have the numbers to prove you wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. Next, the last one is the floppy ear versus pointy ear comments. I don't know. This is my opinion. I think this started when Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State. Hillary notoriously hates dogs. I believe while she was Secretary of the State is when all of the floppy ear only dogs started going for a lot of the contracts, and then it bleeds into TSA, and it bleeds into all these other federal agencies in the
Yeah.
statement of work for them and everybody, this pervasive myth that pointy-eared dogs cannot be single-purpose dogs because they're too intimidating, and they're apparently just going to murder everyone that they come across while they're sniffing. But, and this is, and you and I both get this all the time, administrators that say it has to be a floppy-eared dog. And then when I ask them why, they don't really have an answer. They don't, anytime I hear a captain or a lieutenant or a chief or a sheriff say that, and they weren't dog people, like recent dog people, someone told them the term floppy-eared dog because they've never heard it before. Someone told them floppy-eared dog term, and then it has just bled into the fabric of this business, like bled into it. And we were just talking about this before we started recording. All the new COVID dogs are coming out, and I saw if it was I can't remember where it was. Houston Rockets, maybe I think it was
Miami
maybe one
Heat,
of the NBA teams.
Yeah, I think it's Miami Heat.
Yeah, Heat. You're right, Miami Heat. They I saw the first dog that they had doing the human-born COVID sniffs. It was a German Shepherd. I started cheering. I'm like, good on you for that. Do you hear that? I mean, how much do you hear that, the floppy thing?
We hear it a lot, and I ask a lot. I say, well, why? Like, what's the problem? And then, well, and I'm not even going to get into the tracking portion of it, but they're like, we want it to be less intimidating. It's going to go into the schools. I'm like, okay, well, most of these kids have fucking pit bulls or some kind of stupid ass dog at home, a Chihuahua, and that I mean, it's not the intimidation factor. I mean, it's not if it's like you need a happy-go-lucky, like whatever, that's fine. I get it, but and some departments like want that, and that's fine. Like that's the public image, and that's what they want to portray, and that's fine. But I don't think that there is a less propensity with a properly selected dog. Let me preface this: with a properly selected dog, you're not going to have the propensity of a pointy-eared dog to be any different, environmentally or socially than like a lab or like a German Shorthair Pointer or whatever. So, I've done some fantastic single-purpose pointy-eared dogs. Most of them are female, and they are rock stars. Now, one of the gnarliest single-purpose dogs I did was a lab, and his name's Watt. What the hell was he? Was a lab and a Chesapeake, like he was a Chessie and lab mix, right? I've never been bit more by any dog that I ever handled in that asshole. And that dog would bite the shit out of you if you had a ball in your hand. Like literally, like if you had he would come after you. Like, I mean, and it wasn't like I'm going after the ball. He was coming after you. And so it was an interesting, he definitely like, and the handler, and I told it, like when the handler came through, it was like, you cannot have a ball out or just give him, if he had a ball in his mouth, he was fine. Like just give him the ball. Like if you take him to like demos or whatever, just let him keep it in his mouth. But I think there's a pervasive myth that you have to have a lab or whatever to be safe, I guess. I don't know. And the trick here is, this is the other thing. Most states are, and we talked about canine liability at the beginning, right? So this is, circling back to the very first question we had, or second, or whatever question that was, a bite is a bite, like, right? Whether it's a civilian, whether it's a law enforcement officer, whatever the fuck it is, it's a bite. There's most states are 100% at fault. The difference is if you bite somebody in your official capacity as a police officer and a canine handler, and you bite the right person and you bite them for the right reason, and it's an acceptable amount of use of force, you're most of the time going to be granted qualified immunity. If your lab bites some kid in a school, they're not going to give you qualified immunity for that. You're going to be liable for that also. Just like you would if you accidentally backed over somebody with your fucking patrol car, right? And like, it's not a decrease in liability because, but there are Malinois and German Shepherds and Dutch Shepherds that are just as social as any lab or German Shorthair Pointer. So when you're selecting a single purpose dog, aside from drive and health and all the shit we need for them to work, you should place a very, very high priority on sociability, right? So the dog should be social because they're a single purpose and you want them to be whatever, right? More social than patrol dog. Like patrol dogs don't need to be petted, right? Like I get single purpose dogs can be petted and whatever else. I don't think they should be, but whatever. Nobody listens to me anyway. But they shouldn't be touched anyway. But they are, and those dogs should be accepting of it. But yeah, I mean, so sociability is important, but it doesn't necessarily like water down to just breeds. I've had some pointers that are fucking dickheads too. The motherfuckers will bite you also.
Yeah.
And then fucking bloodhounds, they have like that fucking canine rage syndrome. They'll bite shit out of you for like seemingly no reason.
For being there. Yeah.
Well, yeah, single purpose tracking. You get pissed off and they're like, well, fuck you. I'm going to bite you. Like, huh? I mean, I have encountered a couple. One of those other stripy ones, a Hanoverian things, those things can be dickheads too. So, I mean, just because they're quote unquote single purpose let me rephrase that. Just because they're not trained to bite doesn't mean that they won't. It's still a dog, right? Like dogs do dog shit. So
one of the most ridiculous things that I dealt with was I had a dog in my kennel named Karma. She was a black Mal, and I trained her, single purpose explosive dog. She was awesome explosive dog. And I should say is awesome explosive dog. And the sweetest girl, the sweetest dog, so friendly, so nice, such a good girl, amazing dog. No one would look at her. No one would test her.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, hey, what do you got? And I'm sending videos like, she looks great. But we need a floppy eared dog. And I'm like, what if I pinned her ears down? I mean, it's just to be a dick. But I was like, yeah, that's ridiculous. This dog's the nicest dog. And they're like, yeah, we can't do it. So I had a sheriff's office in New York call me. This is right at the beginning of COVID. So I had this dog for like a year, man. Could not get anybody to even look at her. And the guy comes over, the handler / trainer, he comes over and he's like, why is everybody passing on this dog? What's wrong with her? Like, you've had her for so long. What's wrong with her? I go, no one has ever even tested her. They haven't come and looked at her. And so what I had done before he got there was I put odor out in the fun house in different places. And I said, I tell you what, let's just go get her. We'll get her out, bring her up, let her run around. You can see her on the environments and stuff like that and see how she interacts with you and how friendly she is. And he's like, cool. So I went and got her, and we were walking around, and I kind of guided her, she was off leash, into a big room. She went in the rooms, running around, whap, head snap, pointed and sat. He looked at me. I'm like, yep, rewarded her. And then he started laughing. I go, dude, there's like 3 other hides. We'll just keep going. I'm not going to say nothing to her. And she just went, did her thing, room to room, bam, found the hides. He's like, put her in the fucking car. And I'm like, yeah. The first guy who ever tested her, they bought her because she was so good, but nobody would even look at her. He goes, I don't give a shit about her ears. Can she find up bombs? Yes. That's all that matters. So I would love to see that myth change. TSA is not going to, because now they're doing all the human born, and they want the dog to, sniff humans if whatever, and they don't want to intimidate them. But it just, oh my gosh, it just is irritating. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's the first one of these. I predict that we'll come up with some more at some other time frame. I think people like this type of stuff when we talk and complain and bitch. I'm going to go watch for the black helicopters to come down after, since I flipped off a federal judge. That's that favorite joke of mine is, what's the difference between God and a federal judge? God doesn't think he's a federal judge. That's my favorite. So
yeah.
All right, Ted, where can you be found?
Shit. Torchlight K9 on Instagrams and Facebook. Torchlight is one word. Ted_Summers on Instagram. And of course, we have our own Instagram for the podcast, working_dog_radio. And of course, HRD, HRD Police K9 on Facebook, and HRD Police K9 on Instagram. HRD is, we had a couple of seminars get rescheduled. Right, we just finished one this month in Muskogee. A bunch of local teams here. It's 45 minutes from here. Oklahoma was well represented. We had some really nice teams there. We had some guys from Texas come up. We had an alumni from well, he was at the he was from Mesquite, Texas, but he was at the Irving one. Super nice dog, super squared away handler. We had some nice dogs from Texas come up. We had guys from Kansas State Highway Patrol and I want to say Wichita or Lawrence or something. Somewhere else in Kansas. I had some Arkansas teams. Obviously, I had a guy there from Indiana and all of my Oklahoma teams. So, or a lot of not my Oklahoma teams, just Oklahoma teams in general. But the guys in Muskogee PD treated us really well. Bob Lynch hosted us. They did a great job. We had great facilities. So, yeah, it was good. Next HRD, I have to look. Everything's gotten moved around. We've got our SWAT one coming up in April. I think is when it is, up in Albany, New York. With Albany City. So yeah, head over to HRD Police Canine and check it out to get signed up, see when we're adding stuff all the time. I think we're booked up through, I think, almost 2022. So we're full for the year. So, and from what I hear as of today, which I don't know what today is, late 20s, January, Hits and Blue Line are still on, and you and I are going to be doing the Dog and Pony show there. So we will be instructing at both. So where are you?
Van S K9 on Instagram, Van S K9 Academy on Facebook. More pet stuff on the Facebook page anymore. Also, we have a Patreon account on patreon.com. Look up Working Dog Radio. Don't forget, go to workingdogradio.com. Check the shop. There are a lot of good t-shirt designs. We haven't really promoted so many of them. There's some old school legend t-shirts that we have that designs we've had for a long time.
Yeah.
And then we have some great new funny designs up there, man. Like really cool stuff. A lot of it comes off as just being pissed off about things. So
yeah, we have the liabilities of myth one. So
we do.
That's
up there.
So yeah, we covered that tonight. So yeah.
All right. Well, thanks guys for checking in, and we'll see you hopefully with some down under folks here pretty soon.
Yeah, dudes with cooler accents than us when we come back. So yeah, we'll see you guys in 10 days. Thanks.